Greetings, KSOL, Black Talk Radio, the new black media. This video is about white supremacy and the use of the term. White supremacy is a descriptive and useful term to capture the all-encompassing centrality and assumed superiority of people defined and perceived as white, and the practices based on this assumption. White supremacy does not refer to individual white people, but to an overarching political, economic, and social system of domination. Racism is a structure, not an event. The United States is a global power, and through movies and mass media, corporate culture, advertising, U.S.-owned manufacturing, military presence, historical colonial relations, missionary work, and other means, white supremacy is circulated globally. White supremacy is especially relevant in countries that have a history of colonialism by Western nations. These patterns have been observed in white people in other white settler societies such as Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. In his book, The Racial Contract, Charles W. Mills argues that the racial contract is a tacit and sometimes explicit agreement among members of the peoples of Europe to assert, promote, and maintain the ideal of white supremacy in relation to all other people of the world. And this is witnessed when you go to other countries and you find that the people of color who are the native people in those lands are ruled by a European nation of some sort. You find that this is happening around the world. So therefore, when we say that white supremacy is global, that's exactly what we mean. For those of you who are European and you find this information hard to digest, think about it. Mills describes white supremacy as, quote, the unnamed political system that has made the modern world what it is today, unquote. Although white supremacy has shaped Western political thought for hundreds of years, it was never named. In this way, white supremacy is rendered invisible, while other political systems such as socialism, capitalism, fascism, they're identified and studied. Mills makes 2 points that are critical to our understanding of white fragility. First, white supremacy is never acknowledged. Second, we cannot study any socio-political system without addressing how that system is mediated by race. The failure to acknowledge white supremacy protects it from examination and holds it in place. So you see, white fragility is a method of ignoring facts and evading the discussion of racism and white supremacy. It's very plain and simple. White fragility is a form of evading the subject of racism and white supremacy. It's a mechanism that holds this system in place. But I digress. The racial contract, which creates a world in their cultural image, political states, differentially favoring their interests, an economy structured around the racial exploitation of others, and a moral psychology skew consciously or unconsciously towards privileging them, taking the status quo of differing racial entitlement as normatively legitimate and not to be investigated further. Race scholars use the term white supremacy to describe a socio-political economic system of domination based on racial categories that benefits those defined and perceived as white. This system of structural power privileges, centralizes, and elevates white people as a group. One of the most potent ways white supremacy is disseminated is through media representations, which have a profound impact on how we see the world. Given that the majority of white people live in racial isolation from black people, white people are deeply influenced by the racial messages in films. Further, these biased representations have been disseminated worldwide. While white supremacy originated in the West, as I stated before, it circulates globally. Of the hundreds of top-grossing films worldwide in 2016, for instance, 95% were directed by white Americans, 99 of them by white men. That is an incredibly homogeneous group of directors, yet they are in the position to represent the racial, quote, other. So, family, I hope I've made clear that white supremacy is something much more pervasive and subtle than the actions of explicit white nationalists. White supremacy describes the culture we live in, a culture that positions white people and all that is associated with them as ideal. White supremacy is more than the idea that whites are superior to people of color, especially black people. It is the deeper premise that supports this idea, the definition of whites as the norm or standard for human, and black people and other people of color as a deviation from that norm. You see, naming white supremacy changes the conversation in two key ways. It makes the system visible and shifts the focus of change onto white people, exactly where it belongs. It also points us in the direction of the lifelong work that is uniquely ours, challenging our complicity with and investment in racism. The full weight of responsibility rests with those who control the institutions, namely white people and their white supremacist culture. So family, I'm going to close with this. One of the key reasons why I love doing my videos is because it gives me an opportunity to say my piece and talk about what's most important to our community, namely the black community, American descendants of slaves. It allows me to talk to you and expose many of the things that I know, come to know, have researched and studied. It allows me to do this without being interrupted by white people trying to talk over me or trying to yell their points across to where we can't get in our word edgewise. You know how they do. They've done it so many times. And so with that, I just want to say that when I talk to these white people who always like to turn around and say that, no, you're the racist, when they always like to point their finger away from themselves when it's clearly who the racist is, and I've just defined exactly what it is. It's a system, not something that black people own or run. It's a system that they control and maintain. So you can cut it with that reverse racism BS. But I leave with saying this. I'm always left wondering what actually qualifies as racism in the white mind. That is the question. What actually qualifies as racism in the white mind? Because we've seen some of the shenanigans they've been pulling. So that is my question to them. KSOL Black Talk Radio, thanks a lot for watching. Please like and share. Don't forget to subscribe. Peace out.